The most gorgeous girl on campus showed up at my front door, completely soaked from the heavy rain, begging to spend the night with me. But I actually turned her away. The very next day, she was brutally murdered in the dark alley right by my house. Ever since that moment, an unbearable, suffocating guilt has eaten away at my soul. After busting my ass to get into the police academy, I hunted like a madman for the real killer. But that damn torrential rain had washed away every single piece of evidence. For 10 agonizing years, I couldn't find a single trace. But suddenly, a freak bolt of lightning struck, sending me right back to this exact crossroads of fate. Ethan, I heard your parents are away on business, and you're the only one home right now. Could you please let me stay at your place for a few days? I promise I can do chores around the house to make up for it. I just stared at the girl standing right in front of me, instinctively reaching out my hand to touch her face. Chloe flinched, instinctively wanting to dodge away, but desperately needing help, she forced herself to stand completely frozen on the spot. An icy chill seeped straight through my fingertips. Her faint, trembling reaction screamed one beautiful, impossible truth. She was actually still alive. I really came back to the past. I'm so sorry, Chloe stammered, hurriedly backing away. Suddenly, her foot slipped and she started tumbling backward. I moved like lightning, catching her safely by the waist and pulling her firmly into my chest. Over the roaring sound of the pouring rain outside, a heavy, breathless silence fell between the two of us. She just froze in my embrace, terrified to even move a muscle. I quickly let go of her and took a step back into the light. You just looked so incredibly cold. I instinctively wanted to warm you up. I'm sorry. I'm perfectly fine, she whispered softly. I stepped aside to welcome her inside. Looking at her pale, bloodless face, my mind immediately started racing with plans. In my past life, after pulling off this sick crime in Astro City, the killer vanished into thin air. This time around, not only am I going to save her life, but I'm going to use my 10 years of hardcore detective experience to nail the real killer right at the crime scene tonight. Chloe hovered anxiously in the entryway, nervously tugging at the soaked hem of her shirt. Seeing me turn around to grab some slippers, she panicked even more. My socks are totally soaked, and I'll ruin your nice slippers. I can just walk inside barefoot. I promise I'll mop the floor for you later. Being alone with a guy late at night, completely drenched in rain, had clearly plunged her into a state of sheer panic. She dug her nails deep into her palms, desperately forcing herself to calm down. While my back was turned, she darted her eyes around, quickly scanning her surroundings. It wasn't until she spotted the steaming mug of hot tea on the coffee table and the messy cardboard boxes that her tense shoulders finally dropped a fraction. Here's a soft towel for your hair. Go ahead and use this first, if you don't mind. Could you maybe lend me some clothes, too? Mine are a bit wet. Only then did I realize she was gripping her soak-through blouse for dear life. Since you need to change anyway, why not go take a nice hot bath? Otherwise, you're definitely going to catch a nasty cold from the chill. The guest bathroom doesn't have a tub, so just use the one in my master bedroom. I'll go run the hot water for you right now. Hearing she had to bathe in my personal bathroom, Chloe hung her head in total embarrassment, murmuring a tiny okay as quiet as a mouse. The relaxing sound of rushing water soon echoed from the bathroom. Chloe watched me bustling around, finally gathering the courage to speak up. Ethan. Just Ethan is fine. I smiled gently. You want to ask why I didn't question your reasons for staying over, right? Chloe looked up in total surprise, nodding her head as her wide eyes filled with curiosity. A girl as incredibly pretty as you, knocking on a guy's door for shelter in the middle of a massive storm. You obviously have a desperate reason you can't avoid. And since you clearly don't want to talk about it, it'd be a jerk move for me to pry. Hearing those words, tears instantly welled up in Chloe's eyes. The water's perfectly warm now. I stood up, walked slowly over to her, and suddenly slapped my hand against the wall right beside her ear, trapping her inside my personal space. Listen, I'm not worried about you having any bad intentions, but aren't you terrified that by staying here in my house, I might try something completely inappropriate with you? Chloe pressed back against the wall, gently biting her bottom lip as a rush of warmth surged through her body. I trust you. Her gorgeous eyes stared boldly right back into mine. That sweet, innocent answer completely killed any chance I had of teasing her further. Remembering the deadly serious business I still had to handle tonight, I smiled warmly and pulled my hand away. Go take your bath. Here's some dry clothes to change into. With how tiny you are, this shirt'll basically be a dress on you. It'll do for now while yours are being washed. We'll toss them in the washer, then the dryer. Trust me, they'll be dry in no time. Thank you so much, Chloe whispered softly, turning to slip into the bathroom. That thank you was partly for giving her a safe place to stay and partly for actually respecting her boundaries. As I stood there, listening to the soothing splash of water coming from behind that door, I gave her a warm smile, spun around, and headed out of the bedroom to brew up some hot ginger tea. A little while later, the bathroom door creaked open, and Chloe stepped out, practically swimming in my oversized hoodie. Her cheeks were glowing with a soft, rosy pink flush from all the hot steam, showing off the pale skin just above her knees. I put some slippers out for you, I told her. She slid her feet into the warm, fuzzy slippers, and I could literally see the shy tension melting right out of her. The second she wandered out of the bedroom, that sweet, cozy smell of warm honey ginger soup hit her right in the face. I walked over holding a steaming mug, but my eyes accidentally caught a glimpse past her wide collar, making my Adam's apple bob nervously. Here, get some of this soup in you. Chloe took the mug with both hands, taking tiny, careful sips. You want me to whip up some noodles too? Are you sure? Wouldn't that be a hassle? She asked softly. What hassle? It's literally going to take me a few minutes. Just go grab a seat. I'll even throw in a couple of eggs for you. Just as I turned to head to the stove, a tiny hand tugged at my sleeve. I actually know how to fry eggs. Let me help out, she insisted. Once we got into the kitchen, my lightning-fast knife skills completely blew her away. In the blink of an eye, I had perfectly neat little slices of tomatoes and ham lined up right on the cutting board. Chloe hopped up onto a small stool, stretching on her tiptoes to grab the egg carton from the very top shelf. As she reached up, the hem of that massive hoodie instantly rode way up. I caught a quick flash of it out of the corner of my eye, and my entire face turned beet red in a second. She must have felt me looking because she frantically reached down to yank the hem back into place, totally losing her balance on that tiny stool. I lunged forward from behind to catch her, but my hand completely missed its mark and slipped right onto somewhere I definitely shouldn't be touching. Her whole body basically melted, tumbling straight back into my arms. In a flash, my sandalwood scent and her citrus body wash completely tangled up in the air between us. We were totally frozen like statues, hearts racing, until the boiling water violently splashed out of the soup pot, completely shattering that heavy, romantic tension. I snapped my hand back like I had touched a hot stove, jumped half a foot away, and practically shoved the slotted spoon right into her hands. You stir. I'll get the eggs. Spinning around, I caught my own glowing red ears staring back at me in the mirror. Looking back, it made total sense now. All these long years, it was never that I didn't care about dating. It was just that literally no one else had ever made my heart hammer like this. Chloe, her face burning, ducked her head and just nervously stirred the noodles. The loud sizzling and bubbling coming from the pot did a perfect job of masking the wild, pounding roar of her heartbeat. That mouth-watering smell of tomato noodle soup flooded the whole kitchen. I carried our bowls over to the table, doing my absolute best to dodge her slightly shaky fingertips. Careful now. It's scorching hot, I warned. Go ahead and flip the channel to whatever you want to watch. But the absolute second the TV screen flashed on, Chloe's grip on her chopsticks went white-knuckle tight. Right there on the big screen were those spicy late-night study materials I totally forgot to close out of. The scenes playing were straight-up wildly explicit. I awkwardly cleared my throat, panic-smashing the remote to jump back to the on-demand menu. I randomly landed right on an episode of Crayon Shin-chan. Man, I completely forgot about this. Back in the day, I was so terrified of getting busted watching this exact show that I straight-up refused to let the hottest girl on campus into my room. Luckily for me, after grinding through years of absolutely shameless, thick-skinned experience, I played it off like it was nothing, keeping a straight face without missing a single beat, and rapidly closed the tab. Chloe mercifully jumped right in to change the subject. I honestly had no idea you were such a crazy good cook, she murmured. I grabbed a tissue and super gently dabbed away the tiny little beads of sweat forming on the tip of her nose. Look at you, breaking a sweat. That means the cold is finally out of your system. Take your time eating. We've got plenty more left in the pot. She locked in, totally focusing on her noodles, devouring every single bite and slurping down the last drop of broth with a super satisfied look on her face. Wait, you're really full after only one bowl? I asked. The second she opened her mouth to reply, a massive, deafening crack of thunder exploded right outside the window. Out of pure instinct, my eyes shot straight to the wall clock. 9:57. I had barely half an hour left before the brutal crime went down in my past life. This time around, I was swearing on my life to uncover that bastard's true face. The clock was ticking hard. I quickly geared up, getting ready to head straight out into the storm to scout out the perimeter of the crime scene. I brought over a fresh glass of water, wrapping a warm, heavy blanket securely around her shoulders. Since you're full, why don't you just chill out and watch some TV in the living room for a bit? Don't even worry about the dishes, I'll scrub them as soon as I'm back. I'm just going to step out real quick to grab a late-night snack. I won't be long. Wait, you're seriously going out in this crazy downpour? She asked, worried. It's all good. The place is super close. Just as my hand hit the front door handle, I froze dead in my tracks and slowly turned back around. A dark thought hit me. What if that psycho had this all planned out and followed her here, lurking right in the shadows? Listen to me. Until I walk back through this door, do not open it for anyone, even if they hammer on the doorbell. I've got my own keys, so you know for a fact I won't be the one ringing it. Hearing the dead serious tone in my voice, Chloe nodded obediently, curling up just like a scared little kitten as she bundled herself even tighter in that warm blanket. As the heavy door clicked shut, she just stared out at the empty room, staying curled up on the sofa to quietly wait for me to come home. I popped open my pitch-black umbrella and stepped right out into the raging storm. I shot a hard glare down at my waterproof watch. The time read exactly 9:58 p.m. Back in my past life, the medical examiner clocked Chloe's exact time of death at right around 10:30 p.m. My absolute focus tonight? The exact spot she was doomed to cross in my past life, that 24-hour convenience store. In my first life, Chloe had borrowed an umbrella from there, grabbed a quick bite, and then walked straight into that cursed alley. Even though she was crashing at my place tonight, I had to make damn sure the timeline wouldn't pull some sick cosmic correction and kill someone else in her place. Hell no, I wasn't letting that happen. On the way over, I whipped out my phone to check the security feed back at my apartment. There she was on the screen, hugging her knees on the couch, glued to the TV, safe, sound, and staying put. Thank God. I picked up my pace. But right as I closed in on the store, a muffled groan echoed from the dumpster at the edge of the alley. A scrawny kid was curled up on the wet pavement. A pack of punks had him surrounded, kicking and punching the crap out of him while barking at him to show what he was hiding in his hands. The kid pinned in the dirt was gripping a light gray handkerchief like his life depended on it, a battered tin box tossed right next to him. One look and I recognized him. It was Leo, my weirdo classmate who was always getting shoved around. The second they heard my voice, those punks whipped their heads around, the color completely draining from their faces. Thanks to my family's massive influence in Astro City, these street rats were always scared out of their minds to cross me. I didn't even have time to lower my umbrella before they scattered like terrified roaches, leaving nothing but the heavy rain drumming against the alley's tin roof. I dropped to one knee, holding my umbrella steady over Leo's soaking head. Hey, you all right? Need me to take you to the hospital? I spotted an ugly old burn scar on his wrist. I reached out to haul him up, but he flinched away like I'd just electrocuted him. His tin box smacked against the brick wall, spilling some crayons and a half-empty bag of cat food straight into the mud. Thanks, he mumbled, keeping his head down as he scrambled for his backpack. His soaking wet bangs covered that tear mole under his eye. But what really caught my attention? The dark brown grime caked under his left fingernails. It looked exactly like dried blood. Are you seriously out here feeding strays in the middle of a massive thunderstorm? Leo let out a weak grunt, then immediately started hacking his lungs out, his bony shoulders violently shivering in the freezing rain. I ripped off my jacket and tossed it right over him. Put it on. Didn't your mom just leave on another business trip? If you end up getting sick on top of everything, who the hell is going to watch your little brother? And then, boom, it hit me. The security footage from my previous life violently flashed through my mind. Back then, Chloe had clearly spotted something outside this very store before wandering into the alley. Seeing Leo huddled here right now, everything just perfectly clicked. Chloe totally saw Leo getting jumped. Every single tiny detail from my past life rushed through my brain at lightning speed. If, in my previous life, Chloe had run out of that store to break up this fight, her soaking wet, vulnerable look would have absolutely made these dirtbags escalate from bullying to straight-up harassment. I racked my brain trying to remember how Leo looked the following Monday back then. His injuries were 1,000,000 times worse than what I was looking at right now, and yet, he barely even reacted when he heard about Chloe's murder. Wait! That meant in the old timeline, he must have fought like a cornered animal to hold those thugs back, giving Chloe the opening she needed to escape them. So, if those punks didn't kill her, the real murderer was someone else entirely. Piecing it all together, my mind zeroed in on one massive piece of evidence, the murder weapon. On a stormy night like this, whoever was wandering around carrying a deadly blade was our prime suspect. The realization hit me like a truck. Those 3 street rats I just scared off could easily be carrying blades. I instantly kicked myself for letting them just walk away. As for a beaten-up Leo, he survived just fine all the way to graduation in my past life, so he wasn't my priority right now. Look, if you're not dying, get your butt home, now. I was just about to bolt, but I paused, eyeing Leo's completely busted umbrella. I just shoved my black one straight into his chest. Yours is trashed. Take mine. I've got some business to handle, so I can't walk you. Watch your back and hurry home. Before the kid could even spit out a no, I dove headfirst back into the torrential rain, sprinting until I totally vanished into the shadows. Because the storm was coming down so hard, those 3 idiots couldn't have gotten very far. Sure enough, they were hiding out under an old awning. They were cursing up a storm, actually debating whether they should toss a bag over my head and beat the living hell out of me. But of course, they were too chicken to actually do it because of my family's power. Right as they were second-guessing themselves, I burst out of the rain and stopped dead in front of them. The 3 punks jumped out of their skin, probably thinking I was back to shake them down for cash. They frantically waved their hands, stumbling backward. Hey there, my 3 best buddies. Mind if I borrow a little something? The 3 of them exchanged panicked looks, totally on guard. Relax, not your money. Something else entirely. The 3 thugs stared at me, totally clueless. I just looked right back, flashing them the most harmless, innocent smile I could muster. A knife. The 3 of them froze in their tracks, clearly completely lost. Come on. You 3 are street punks. Don't tell me you guys go out without even packing a simple blade on you. That little reverse psychology trick worked like an absolute charm. The green-haired punk, refusing to look weak, whipped a butterfly knife out of his pocket. He started twirling it around, showing off right in my face. It only took one glance for me to know. This was definitely not the smooth, clean-cutting fruit knife from the autopsy report in my past life. This thing was just way too flashy. I'll give you $100 if you've got something simple, like a fruit knife. Hearing the promise of easy cash, the other 2 thugs scrambled to pull out their own weapons. One had a bulky, complicated Swiss Army knife, while the other flashed a folding tactical blade that gleamed under the cold streetlights. Neither of them was the murder weapon I was desperately hunting down. Hey, they're nice blades, but unfortunately, I only brought $100 on me. Forget it. Ignoring their confused stares and the string of curses they threw at me for wasting their time, I spun right around and plunged back into the freezing rain. Those 3 punks didn't have the murder weapon at all. This lead, completely dead in the water, a suffocating, powerful surge of anxiety flared up in my chest, burning like a wildfire. Honestly, the easiest way to solve this whole mess would have been to just reject Chloe, exactly like I did in my past life. Then, I could have secretly tailed her and caught the real killer red-handed, right at the scene of the crime. But now, having a miraculous second chance, the second I saw her standing there, safe and completely sound, I just couldn't suppress the wild fluttering in my heart. I would much rather search for a needle in a damn haystack than ever let her face even a single shred of danger again. I rushed back to the convenience store to grab a cheap umbrella. The sweet clerk behind the counter actually handed me a clean towel to wipe the freezing rainwater off my head. I mumbled a quick thank you, scrubbed my hair dry, and securely sealed my phone inside a waterproof pouch. Then, perfectly mimicking Chloe's exact route and walking pace from my previous life, I popped open the umbrella and stepped right back into the raging storm. The absolute second I stepped back into the downpour, a brutal gust of wind nearly snapped the flimsy metal ribs of the umbrella in half. Trudging through thick mud and shattered glass littered across the pavement, I finally made it. The exact starting point of the security camera's blind spot. This was it. The very crime scene that was etched into my brain from reading that horrific forensics report over and over in my past life. The faint, glowing dial of my waterproof watch read 10:07 p.m. Right at that moment, a massive gust of wind completely blew my umbrella inside out. Screw it! I just tossed the ruined umbrella aside, letting the icy, violent rain pelt down mercilessly on my face. Suddenly, my phone buzzed inside the waterproof case. Leaning heavily against a damp, freezing brick wall, I tapped the screen to open the live camera feed of my apartment. There, bathed in the soft, warm yellow glow of the living room lamp, Chloe was curled up tight in the corner of the sofa. She was rubbing her feet together, looking super anxious, her eyes darting toward the front door over and over again. Her face was painted with this heartbreaking mix of eager anticipation and genuine worry. Just wait a little bit longer, Chloe. Everything will be fine. Don't worry about me. The time ticked over to exactly 10:29 p.m. Out of nowhere, a sharp, metallic clatter echoed from the dark end of the alley. My senses instantly went into overdrive. I crept over silently on high alert, only to spot a totally unexpected familiar face. It was Jace, the notorious, untouchable bad boy of Astro High School. Right then, he was just sitting under a shady tin awning, using a small fruit knife to peel a pathetic-looking apple. "Well, well, if it isn't Ethan," he called out. "This wind and rain are absolutely crazy for the middle of the night. What the hell are you doing running around out here without even an umbrella?" I shrugged it off. "Just running some urgent errands. My umbrella got completely trashed by the wind. But what about you? What are you doing out here in this freezing weather?" Jace used the sharp tip of his knife to poke at a sad, wrinkled apple sitting inside a cheap plastic bag. I actually knew the truth about him. His whole terrifying school bully persona, it was nothing but a desperate defensive front. His family was dirt poor, and his mom was battling severe kidney failure. "I brought some fruit for my old lady," he muttered, but I ended up getting kicked out of the room anyway. I glanced down, right along the edges of his muddy rain boots. There was a piece of non-slip grip tape, the exact kind used in hospital corridors, stuck to the heel, and even from here I could smell the harsh chemical scent of ICU disinfectant lingering on that knife blade. But none of that mattered. My eyes were locked dead onto the fruit knife in his hand. Every single detail, every characteristic, it was a perfect, terrifying match for the murder weapon from Chloe's case. "What the hell are you just standing in the rain for?" Jace yelled over the storm. "Hurry up and get under here, man! My place is right next door. Let me grab you a spare umbrella." But the exact second I stepped under the tin awning, Jace's phone started ringing frantically. Through the speaker, the panicked voice of a hospital nurse screamed that his mother's blood oxygen levels had suddenly plummeted. The color completely drained from Jace's face. With a loud splash, the fruit knife slipped from his trembling hand and dropped straight into a dirty puddle. Without even taking a second to say a word, he spun around and sprinted like an absolute madman into the pouring rain. Slowly, I bent down and reached into the muddy water to pick up the knife. As my fingers wrapped around the handle, a bone-chilling, icy sensation completely washed over me. I stared at the blade. After a dead-on inspection, I was absolutely certain the time, the location, the size, the style, it was a flawless match. This was it. The exact murder weapon that took Chloe away from me in my past life. If Jace had just tossed it by mistake, the real killer was bound to show up in the next 30 minutes to claim it. I took a shaky breath, swallowed my rage, and tossed the knife right back into the dirt. Leaning heavily on my years of hardcore criminal investigation experience, I melted back into the shadows to set my ambush. The torrential rain hammered down around me like bullets. At 10:35 p.m., a stumbling vagrant reeking of cheap booze staggered under the awning to dodge the storm. He kicked over an empty soda can, his muddy shoes grinding hard against the knife's handle, burying the blade deep into the muck. Then, clutching a half-empty liquor bottle, he swayed back out into the night. At 10:47 p.m., a delivery driver slammed on his brakes to duck out of the rain, accidentally stepping right on the buried knife and wiping out. He scrambled up, cursing up a storm, and kicked the blade straight into a crack by the drainage ditch. Mud instantly swallowed it whole. The clock hit 10:55 p.m. Buried under that thick sludge, there was no way in hell anyone was just going to stumble across that knife by accident. We were now just minutes away from the exact estimated time of Chloe's murder in my past life. My heart hammered. Suddenly, a dark figure in a black raincoat and a mask slipped out from the dead end of the alleyway. Hunched over against the storm, he made a beeline straight for the mud-covered knife and squatted down in the dirt. Every muscle in my body snapped tight like a drawn bowstring. Right as he reached out to grab the handle, his sleeve slid back, revealing a nasty, unforgettable chemical burn scar on his wrist. I bolted out from the shadows like a bat out of hell. Under the dim, dreary streetlights, I finally saw the face hiding beneath that dark raincoat. It was Astro High School's notoriously gentle Mr. Nice Guy, our beloved chemistry teacher, Arthur Miller. A violent storm of shock ripped through my chest. Just 3 months ago, this guy threw himself in front of some goofing off students in the lab, taking a brutal acid splash to save them. Afterward, he even gently patted the back of the kid who caused the whole disaster, comforting him. He was also famous for being a totally henpecked husband. Nobody in the entire neighborhood had a single bad thing to say about him. But if the killer was really him, every single agonizing, unanswered question from my past life finally clicked into place. In my previous life, Chloe was ambushed in this pitch-black alleyway, but there wasn't a single sign of her trying to fight back or run. That was exactly because she trusted this gentle, kind-hearted teacher with her life. If Arthur Miller had walked up, offered to shield her with his raincoat, and promised to take her to his wife for safety, trapped in a freezing, torrential storm, poor Chloe wouldn't have had a single shred of suspicion. The realization hit me like a truck, tearing my heart to pieces. But I couldn't afford to lose my cool. Not yet. After all, in this timeline, Arthur hadn't actually committed the crime yet. I had to use my investigative instincts to test why the hell he was creeping around at midnight. Mr. Miller's head snapped up. Seeing me absolutely drenched, his eyes blew wide with total surprise and fatherly concern. "Ethan? Man, how did you get so drenched?" I kept my cool. I had to run some errands and got stuck in the downpour. "But Mr. Miller, what are you doing out in this crazy storm?" I locked eyes with him, catching a sharp, split-second flicker of panic. "Oh, it's nothing. I just ran out to grab a pack of cigarettes." Bullshit. He was lying through his teeth. Arthur didn't smoke a day in his life. He was the ultimate clean-cut family man. "My raincoat is pretty spacious," he offered. "Get under here out of the rain. I'll walk you to my place, and you can borrow this coat to get home safely." He flashed that same damn amiable smile. Playing dumb, I nodded blankly and slipped right under his coat. As we huddled in that cramped space, I noticed his eyes dart toward a dirty adult vending machine on the corner before snapping back to normal as he threw an arm around my shoulder. Walking beside him, I felt cold and hollow, stumbling along like a living corpse. The second we hit his front porch, Arthur yanked out his phone, fired off a quick text, and shoved it away. "Oops, I forgot my keys." "Let's just wait a sec, haha." But I had literally just felt the heavy ring of keys jangling against his waist. Strike two, another blatant lie. The warning bells in my head were screaming now. A second later, the lock clicked and the door creaked open. Standing in the doorway was Arthur's wife, Sarah, another chemistry teacher at our school. She was wearing a flimsy silk nightgown. The belt was tied totally loose, and her cheeks were burning a deep, flushed red. As the warm entryway light spilled out into the dark, I caught a quick glimpse inside. A knocked-over wine bottle on the coffee table, flickering scented candles, and scattered rose petals. The air was thick with the heavy, lingering scent of a wild, romantic hookup. In that exact, pulse-pounding second, the fog lifted. Everything became crystal clear. Every single twisted clue slammed together, forming one horrifyingly clear picture in my mind. Picture this. Mr. Miller had a perfectly steamy night planned with his wife, but realized they were entirely out of protection. So, he braved the pouring rain to go grab some. Being the absolute nice guy that he is, he couldn't help but stop to clear the trash, blocking a storm drain on his way, and accidentally picked up a literal fruit knife. Bumping into me right after that, he was way too embarrassed to buy his little necessities, and he couldn't just leave me alone in the dark, either. So, with no other choice, he awkwardly brought me back home with him, And that little act about forgetting his keys? It was just a frantic text to give his wife enough time to slip out of her sexy lingerie before I walked through the door. In that single instant, all of his bizarre behavior finally made perfect sense. Whoa, how did you get so completely drenched? I am so incredibly sorry. Quick, grab this towel and dry off. Thank you so much, Mrs. Miller. I grabbed the towel and started drying my hair, but the nagging suspicion in my gut was rapidly spiraling into total, mind-bending confusion. Seriously, if he was still that same sweet guy, and his wife was waiting at home, totally desperate for some late-night intimacy. I mean, would a supposedly perfect guy like this really give in to some twisted urge, prey on an innocent female student on the street, take her life, and just dump her body like trash? Saran's eyes locked onto the filthy blade still gripped tightly in Arthur Miller's hand. "Where on earth did you even find that thing?" she asked, totally bewildered. "And why is it absolutely covered in grime?" "I found the damn thing stuck by the storm drain, blocking a massive pile of garbage. I bumped into Ethan right after and completely forgot to ditch it," Arthur Miller muttered, getting ready to chuck the blade straight into the trash. But right then, a cold chill ran down my spine. Something was dead. Wrong. "Whoa, hold up a second, Mr. Miller. Hand that knife over. Let me get a good look at it." Looking totally confused, Arthur flipped the weapon around. He carefully pointed the sharp edge toward himself and held out the handle to me. It was such an instinctive, careful move. Honestly, it just proved what a genuinely good and gentle guy he was deep down, despite this whole crazy situation. I snatched the fruit knife and squinted at it. The second I really focused, my stomach instantly dropped. The lighting had been way too dark before, but now I could clearly see the edge was slightly chipped. Jace must have used this exact blade to hack away at something rock solid. But here is the kicker. There was absolutely zero mention of a damaged blade in the medical examiner's report. A chipped edge like this would leave a totally different, super obvious cut on the victim. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't the murder weapon at all. I had been chasing a complete ghost, totally zeroed in on the wrong target from the very start. Panic setting in, I violently whipped my wrist around to check my watch. It was already 11:30 at night. Time was running out. The actual killer might be making their move right this very second. My chest pounded with pure anxiety as I frantically shoved the towel back into Sarah's hands, ready to bolt. "Sorry, Mr. Miller, but I am totally out of time. I gotta get home. I'm taking your raincoat." I shoved the hilt of the knife right back into Arthur's hand, threw on the coat, and charged headfirst into the raging storm. I sprinted all the way back to the crime scene, frantically scouring every inch of the area, looping the block over and over. A few random people hurried past, heads down in the rain, but none of them gave off the cold-blooded vibe of a killer hunting their next victim. By 11:30 p.m., the streets were completely dead. I pulled out my phone and pulled up my apartment's security feed. There was Chloe. She was curled up on the couch, nodding off, her head bobbing as she fought a losing battle against sleep. But she kept forcing her heavy eyes open, constantly glancing at the front door. She was waiting for me. My chest tightened. I clenched my fists and just ripped off the raincoat. I kept pacing around that pitch-black crime scene until way past midnight, but nothing. Not a single suspicious shadow in sight. A suffocating wave of helplessness and chilling dread washed over me. Did I really miss my window? The clock just kept ticking past midnight, and the streets remained totally empty. That crushing despair started creeping in all over again. Had the killer already slipped away? If I couldn't catch the bastard tonight, how the hell was I supposed to clear Chloe's name from my past life? I tilted my head back, letting the freezing downpour slap me in the face. I couldn't give up. Not now. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my hand. I snapped my eyes back to the security feed. Chloe looked absolutely exhausted, but she was pushing past her fear of being alone. She was pacing by the door now, biting her lip with worry. Hey, it's me," I spoke through the app. She jumped, startled, then immediately locked eyes with the camera. "It's Ethan. I got held up by something, but I swear I'm heading back soon. Go to sleep, okay? Don't wait up." "I'm just so glad you're okay," she replied softly. "I'm not tired yet. I'll wait right here for you." She managed a tired, gentle smile at the lens. "I promise. I'll be right back," I whispered. Appeased, she dragged her heavy body back to the couch and bundled up in her blanket. The tension in her face finally melted away. I looked back up at the dead streets. I stood dead center in the downpour, letting the freezing water shock my system. It was an old habit of mine. The brutal cold forced my brain into absolute overdrive. I stood there, eyes wide, frantically piecing together every single detail from tonight. The convenience store clerk, Leo, those 3 thugs. I shoved every single one of them onto my suspect list. When Leo was getting shaken down by those street thugs, they dumped his backpack completely upside down. He didn't even have a single cent on him, let alone a freaking murder weapon. Cross those 3 thugs off the list. Yeah, they definitely had a motive, but the blades they were carrying didn't match the wound at all. Cross off the homeless guy and the delivery driver too. The knife they got their hands on? Not the real murder weapon either. Once I eliminated everyone who was absolutely impossible, my memory hit rewind and locked onto the one guy I originally thought was totally out of the question. Jace. Jace had bolted to the hospital because his mom was in critical condition, dropping his knife right at the scene, but what if her condition stabilized faster than expected? Half an hour, that would be more than enough time for him to make a round trip to the hospital. What if, on his way back, he realized he'd lost his blade and hit up a nearby convenience store to buy a new one? A fruit knife? The police case files actually recorded that between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. that night, a mysterious buyer purchased a fruit knife in the pouring rain. And the time he got back? It perfectly dodged the exact window when Mr. Miller and I checked his house, stitching this whole timeline together. Jace's suspect level just shot straight through the roof. Testing this crazy theory would be dead simple. Just go knock on Jace's front door, right here, right now. If he was already home, and he really had bought a brand new knife, then his guilt would be absolutely locked in. Relying on my memory, I crept up to his place, and my heart just dropped into my stomach. The lights inside his house, they were actually on. I took a deep, heavy breath and banged on the door. It swung open, and there stood Jace completely shirtless with a wet towel draped over his head. Ethan? What the hell, man? It's pitch black out and you're still not home? And where'd you score that raincoat? I stepped inside. My eyes instantly snapping straight to the living room table. Sitting right there was a brand new fruit knife. The mystery guy from the police files who bought a knife in the midnight rain. It really was him. Mr. Miller lent the coat to me. Did you just get back? Yeah, there was a bit of an emergency with my mom earlier. I was in such a crazy rush I totally forgot to toss you an umbrella. What are you even doing out roaming the streets this late instead of going home? Oh, nothing. I just felt like taking a walk in the rain, that's all. Hey, you ran off in such a massive hurry earlier, you actually dropped your knife on the ground. Why did you go out and buy another one? Holy crap, seriously? I was going crazy wondering why I couldn't find that thing, no matter how deep I dug into my pockets. Where did I drop it? Mr. Miller picked it up and chucked it in the garbage. Ah, damn. Forget about it then. Anyway, that old blade was already chipped from hacking at a wooden bucket, so I just grabbed a new one on my way back home. He laughed it off without a single care in the world, but my chest felt like it was filled with lead. The exact time he came home, it perfectly matched the time of the murder, and he had actually gone and bought an exact, identical model of the murder weapon. There was no way in hell I could rule him out as a suspect now. I carefully chewed on my words, deciding to just test Jace directly. Hey, we're considered pretty good friends, right? What do you mean considered? We're brothers for life, man. Are you dealing with some heavy crap right now? Just spit it out. Staring back at his fiercely loyal, ride-or-die expression, I looked him dead straight in the eyes. Listen to me. I don't ever want to see you end up rotting behind bars for doing something incredibly stupid. You need to really think about the consequences of your actions. Your mom needs you here to take care of her. Do not do anything that breaks the damn law. Jace instantly froze. He completely misunderstood my warning, totally convinced that I had somehow found out about his sketchy plan to sell counterfeit cigarettes at school. But surprisingly, he wasn't pissed off at all. Instead, he looked deeply moved that I had braved the freezing rain just to talk some sense into him. Hey, don't worry about me. Other people might not know how I operate, but you do, right? I won't go through with it. Seeing that my goal was technically achieved, I stood up to head out. Little did I know, this totally accidental warning made him completely ditch his hustle of slinging fake cigarettes forever. As I turned my back and stepped out into the pouring rain, I heard him melodramatically thud his fist against his chest. He was back there swearing a silent oath, absolutely convinced that I was his ultimate brother for life. I said my goodbyes to Jace with a chaotic mix of emotions. Clutching Mr. Miller's raincoat, I quietly sneaked back to his front door just to drop the coat off. Faintly, from deep inside the house, I could hear, well, the kind of heavy, breathless sounds that make your face flush and your heart race. So, I kept my mouth shut and didn't dare disturb them. Trudging all the way back home in the endless downpour, my heavy mood actually started to lighten up bit by bit. If Jace really was the cold-blooded killer, then right now, he was at least still in a phase where he could be steered onto the right path to kill those dark impulses. Out of every single person I crossed paths with tonight, absolutely no one carried a heavier shadow of suspicion than him. By the time I finally dragged myself back home, it was already well past midnight. The moment the front door clicked open, Chloe, who had been dozing off under a cozy blanket, suddenly snapped her eyes wide open. Seeing that I was finally back, her face instantly lit up with a huge smile, and she quickly trotted over to me. But the second she got close enough, she realized I was shivering and completely drenched like a drowned rat. Wait, you just went out to grab a late-night snack. How on earth did you get yourself completely soaked to the bone like this? The storm outside was an absolute nightmare. My umbrella snapped like a twig, and my late-night snacks were literally blown away by the howling wind. Looks like we're out of food, I told her. You need to hurry up and take a hot shower right now, or else you're definitely catching a cold. Seeing the pure concern on her face, I just gave a tired smile. The bed in the guest room is literally just a hard wooden board right now. I haven't set up a single thing in there yet. So, do you want to rough it out on the couch tonight? Or squeeze into my bed? I paused, letting the awkwardness hang before laughing. I'm just kidding. I'll take the couch. You take the actual bed, and I'll crash on the sofa. But let me grab a quick shower first. Not wanting to drip dirty rainwater all over my freshly mopped floor, I just stood right there in the living room and started peeling off my completely soaked clothes. Hearing the wet rustle of fabric, Chloe subconsciously looked up from the couch. The sight of my heavily defined muscles instantly made her heart pound like a jackhammer. She felt her face burning up, her throat suddenly feeling so dry she couldn't even make a single sound. I'll wash up first, I said casually, and I'll call you in to get some sleep the second I'm done. I completely missed her total panic. Grabbing my ruined clothes, I headed into the bathroom while Chloe just nodded like a broken robot, only snapping out of it when the shower started running. She practically melted into the sofa cushions like someone had pulled out all her bones, pressing the cool back of her hand against her furiously burning cheeks. A short while later, I stepped back out into the living room with just a towel wrapped around my waist. I was fully intending to tell her the bedroom was all hers. Instead, I found her clutching a blanket like a tiny kitten, curled up tightly on the sofa and totally passed out. She was letting out these soft, peaceful little breaths. Walking over quietly, I knelt down just to take in her calm, sleeping face. Watching her chest rise and fall so steadily, I still felt this surreal, lingering sensation that I had to be dreaming. Reaching out to gently brush a stray strand of hair from her cheek, a single, stray drop of water from my arm accidentally fell right onto her slightly parted lips. She unconsciously licked her lips, catching me so off guard that I instantly snatched my hand back. Suddenly, a massive crack of thunder boomed right outside the window, making Chloe jolt and roll over in her sleep. She ended up kicking away half her blanket. I instinctively reached out to grab it, but my hand brushed against her warm, bare ankle instead. The moment we touched, her perfectly steady breathing hitched. Her long eyelashes started trembling violently, and I could literally feel her body heat spiking through the roof. She was definitely wide awake now, but she squeezed her eyes shut, pretending to sleep. I didn't call her bluff. Instead, I just scooped her right up, blanket and all, and carried her straight to the bedroom. With every single step, the young girl in my arms grew more and more tense, stiffening. I gently lowered her onto the soft mattress, pulling away the thin blanket and wrapping her up snugly in my own heavy comforter instead. Leaning in dangerously close, my hot breath brushed against her ear, making her instinctively shrink her neck back in shy surprise. I just gave a soft smile, turned on my heel, and quietly walked out the door. The exact second the bedroom door clicked shut, Chloe's eyes fluttered wide open in the pitch-black room. Honestly, during those few agonizingly tense steps from the living room to the bedroom, her racing mind had already short-circuited into total white noise. She had braced herself for the absolute worst, her muscles wound tight to the absolute limit. She never expected that all she'd get instead was a tender, sweet good night. Her tiny hands gripped the edge of the fluffy comforter, nervously pulling it all the way up to her nose. The faint, comforting scent of my body wash still lingered on the fabric. For the absolute first time in her entire life, she didn't defensively curl herself into a tight little ball. Her exhausted body was completely, entirely relaxed. Wrapped up tightly in that warm cocoon, she fell fast asleep. By the time morning rolled around, the fierce, torrential rain that had hammered down all night finally began to let up. Feeling fully refreshed from an amazing night's rest, Chloe hopped right out of bed bright and early. She changed back into her clothes that had been drying out overnight. Determined to fulfill her promise of doing chores to make up for staying over, she meticulously scrubbed my bedroom until it was absolutely spotless. But the second she tiptoed out of the room, she suddenly froze dead in her tracks. The truth is, I was simply way too exhausted last night to even think straight. I had just wrapped a single bath towel around my waist and passed out hard on the sofa under a blanket. Right now, my back was completely turned toward her. The hilarious tragedy? That bath towel, which was supposed to be securely wrapped around my waist, had completely slipped off onto the floor at some point in the night. Chloe's face instantly flushed a burning, bright crimson red. Desperate for a distraction, she skillfully raided the fridge, whipping up some quick sandwiches and heating hot milk just to keep her hands busy. But no matter how hard she tried to focus, that unbelievably blush-inducing scene from just a second ago kept flashing uncontrollably in her mind. Just as Chloe set the breakfast down on the table, I finally started stirring on the sofa. Still half asleep, I instinctively reached toward where my nightstand should be to grab my sidearm, only to feel the freezing cold glass of the coffee table instead. Startled, I abruptly propped myself up with my left hand and bolted upright in a panic. Shockingly enough, that nagging old injury in my left shoulder, the one I got from hunting down a vicious, fierce criminal, didn't throb with even a single ounce of sharp pain. Massaging my pounding temples, I let out a heavy groan, frowned, and casually kicked off the tangled towel. Staring right at the skin beneath my gaze, a chilling realization hit me. It felt completely alien, totally disconnected from every memory I had. The jagged scars from countless brutal knife fights had completely vanished without a single trace, entirely replaced by a smooth, shockingly youthful body that felt like a brand new start. My eyes snapped open, reality hitting me like a freight train. I had actually done it. I traveled back 10 years in time. I whipped my head toward the wide-open bedroom door, my heart hammering in my chest. It wasn't until I spotted her delicate figure bustling around the kitchen that my knees gave out, and I collapsed heavily back onto the sofa. I let out a long, shaky breath. Thank God. It wasn't just some twisted dream. She actually survived that brutal, torrential night. In my past life as a worn-out detective, I carried a crushing mountain of guilt and exhaustion, never getting to enjoy a single day of my youth. But now, she's still here, breathing and alive, which means my youth is back too. This time, I swear I'm going to live life to the absolute fullest. Ethan, time to get up and eat. I already made breakfast. I really hope you like it. Chloe peeked her head out from the dining room, her voice soft and sweet. I sat up, taking a deep breath of the mouth-watering aroma. The comforting smell of toasted wheat and warm milk filled the entire room. Be right there. I walked over to the dining table to find Chloe sitting quietly, just waiting for me. Hey, you don't have to wait for me next time. Just dig in while it's hot. Oh, it's fine, she replied. I have to wait for you to finish so we can wash the dishes together anyway. Taste it and see if you like it. If it's a little off, just tell me and I'll fix it next time. Are you kidding? With these cooking skills, you could totally open a cafe right behind the school. I'll run the cash register and you can be the head chef. I used to be pretty hard-working when I lived on my own, but living with you like this? Man, I'm gonna turn into a lazy bum. Chloe giggled, cupping her cheeks with both hands as her smile lit up the room. I took a bite of the sandwich. The warm fried egg and gooey melted cheese danced across my tongue. Honestly, it tasted out of this world. Smiling, I pulled out a tissue and gently wiped a tiny smudge of grease right off the tip of her nose. The tips of Chloe's ears instantly flushed a deep, bright pink. She shyly lowered her head, intensely focused on stirring the milk in her cup. Once we finished eating, I reached out to clear the plates, accidentally brushing against her hand. Her skin was incredibly soft, but surprisingly ice-cold. Despite that, Chloe stubbornly insisted on doing all the chores, moving like a pro until the kitchen was absolutely spotless. The second she stepped out of the kitchen, her eyes were already darting around, looking for the next thing to clean. Enough was enough. I grabbed her small hand and firmly guided her down onto the sofa. You look completely wiped out. So, you are officially banned from doing chores for the next few days. I'm the boss of this house, which means you follow my orders and get some actual rest. Otherwise, I might just have to kick you to the curb. Chloe blinked, totally taken aback, before obediently nodding her head. Good. Now, come out shopping with me in a bit. I'm buying you some new clothes. Oh, I should just go home and grab my old things. The moment she mentioned home, her face instantly tightened with dread. No need. We are buying brand new ones, and if you don't have cash on you, I've got it covered. But with principal and interest? Oh, you're going to have to work as my personal housekeeper for a very long time to pay off that debt. And if you can't pay it off, well, I guess I just won't let you leave. Chloe wasn't stupid. She could easily hear my desperate, underlying plea for her to stay. A wave of genuine warmth washed over her heart. She finally gave me a soft, peaceful smile and asked, "Where do you usually buy your clothes?" "Oh, just the thrift shop around the corner on the back street near campus. You can snag a whole outfit for $50. But don't worry, I make sure to sanitize everything super carefully. I always boil them 3 times in soapy water and let them bake in the sun." Her quiet voice carried a frantic edge, like she was completely terrified I would judge her for it. "Hey, I actually just thought of a spot. The clothes there are top tier." Catching her off guard, I grabbed her hand and pulled her along. Chloe stumbled forward, her forehead bumping gently against my shoulder. She didn't pull away, happily letting me lead her down the street until we stopped dead in front of a fancy corner boutique. The heavy wooden door was slightly ajar. As we walked in, the crisp chime of the doorbell blended perfectly with a lazy, vintage tune playing on an old phonograph. Chloe stared wide-eyed at the luxurious fabrics in the display window, nervously tugging at my sleeve. "Ethan, this place looks way too expensive. Relax, the owner is an old friend of my mom's. She gives massive discounts to students, so it won't break the bank. Stop worrying and let's go." I confidently pushed the door wide open. The shop smelled amazing, like warm, freshly pressed cotton. Auntie Sharon peeked up from behind the counter, her eyes immediately locking onto our intertwined hands. Her eyes crinkled with a knowing, teasing smile. "Oh my, what a gorgeous girl. Ethan, honey, did you finally bring your girlfriend in to buy her some clothes?" Chloe's ears exploded into a furious, glowing red. Sensing her panic, I gently let go of her hand and cleared my throat. "Sharon, do me a favor and help her pick out a few cute outfits for the season. She's going to need a few sets of undergarments, too. Make sure they're pure, high-quality cotton." Sharon beamed a playful grin and quickly pulled a blushing Chloe behind the dressing room curtain, which playfully left just her head peeking out over the top. Chloe felt completely exposed under my intense gaze, shyly shrinking back into the maze of clothing racks. I stepped back to sit by the window, mindlessly flipping through a catalog. But the playful voice echoing from behind the fitting room curtain drifted right to where she stood. "Don't be shy about that lace one, sweetie," Auntie Sharon teased. "Take it from me, a woman needs to please herself first. Underwear goes on the inside anyway, so just pick whatever makes you feel good. This set will absolutely drive that rascal Ethan crazy. You'll feel gorgeous and he'll love seeing you in it. Total win-win, right?" Chloe desperately wanted to explain what our relationship actually was, but the words caught in her throat. She couldn't squeak out a single sound. In the end, with her cheeks burning bright red, she just gave a shy nod. Once they finished picking out the lingerie, Auntie Sharon snatched up a few more outfits and ducked back behind the curtain. Listening to the soft rustling of fabric, a nervous sweat broke out on the back of my neck. My mind went into overdrive, completely unable to stop imagining what she'd look like wearing them. With a sudden swoosh, the curtain flew open. "Does this look weird?" Chloe clutched her skirt, giving a hesitant little twirl. The morning sunlight wrapped around her, making that honey-colored cotton dress look beautifully semi-translucent. The hem billowed out in a breathtakingly graceful curve. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly going dry. I abruptly stood up to fix her collar. You missed the second button. The second my fingertips brushed against her smooth skin, I jerked my hand back like I'd been electrocuted. I grabbed a straw sun hat and shoved it onto her head just to hide my racing heart. Looks like you're both thrilled with that one. Now, try this set, Sharon cheered, throwing the curtain open once more. The soft, semi-translucent linen perfectly outlined her delicate curves in the gentle morning light. I literally couldn't look away for a second. Auntie Sharon had a killer eye for fashion, and the next few outfits fit Chloe like a glove. Seeing the older woman getting totally addicted to playing dress-up, I quickly spoke up to shut it down. Okay, Auntie Sharon, that's enough, I groaned. My credit card is about to max out. Oh, what are you so afraid of? She shot back. Just make your mom pay you back later. She'd be absolutely thrilled to spend money on her future daughter-in-law. Honestly, I figured you two had already sealed the deal. I could only give a wry smile, practically begging her to spare us the teasing. Sharon kept poking fun at us, but she did ring us up with an incredibly generous 90% off family discount. As she bagged the clothes, she packed the lingerie separately and leaned in to whisper, "Your little girlfriend's figure? Auntie Sharon officially approves." I let out an awkward cough, feeling my ears burn bright red as I handed over my card. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Chloe standing on her tiptoes, admiring a lace nightgown by the window. Bathed in the morning light, she looked incredibly youthful and stunning. Then, like a brutal punch to the gut, the gruesome image of her dead body abandoned in the pouring rain from my past life flashed through my mind. My hands instantly clenched into tight fists, and I swore a silent, unbreakable oath to myself. As long as I am breathing in this second life, I will protect the beautiful girl standing in front of me with every ounce of my being. With her wardrobe sorted, all we had left to buy was the bedding. I walked ahead, loaded down with shopping bags, while Chloe trailed slightly behind, sneaking little glances at me. The mint green lace of her new clothes fluttered playfully from the bags. "Home furnishings are up on the 4th floor," I told her. "Just grab whatever you like when we get up there. You're the one who's going to be sleeping on it, after all." Right then, we honestly felt like a young couple out on a date. She carried this sweet, nervous energy as we finally walked into the bedding store. The warm, yellow store lights made everything look incredibly cozy. I pushed the cart right by her side, quietly watching as she leaned over to inspect the fabrics. It gave me this crazy, overwhelming illusion that we were newlyweds setting up our very first home together. "Would this be too expensive?" she whispered. "What's expensive about it?" I scoffed playfully. "If you like it, just feel it first." I yanked a luxurious silk comforter right off the shelf and shoved it into her arms. She just smiled, staying quiet while I crouched down to compare the mattress fillings. But behind my back, she quietly put that 4-figure silk blanket right back on the shelf. Instead, she picked out a cheap, light green washed cotton one. "This one feels pretty good," she lied. "Good, my foot." The texture felt insanely cheap. I immediately realized the price tag had scared her off. Standing up, I lightly flicked her forehead. "Hey, good bedding actually improves your sleep quality. Besides, even if you don't sleep in the guest room forever, we can just wash it and save it for company. It's totally fine to splurge on the good one." The hidden meaning behind "we" and "not sleeping in the guest room forever" hit her ears with a completely different, scandalous implication. She froze, completely dazed. "Here, come test the support on this mattress," I called out. Before she could even process what was happening, I pulled her right down onto the fluffy silk comforter, sliding a memory foam pillow gently behind her head. I reached out, my palm gently supporting the small of her back right through the soft fabric of her clothes. Chloe sank into the plush bedding, her cheeks flushing a soft pink. It felt as if the very air around her was dripping with a warm, honey-like sweetness. Earlier, after ringing up all our purchases, she had stared down at the pale silver sheets in the shopping cart and whispered a tiny, timid thank you. "Thank you, Ethan." I stopped dead in my tracks, causing her to bump right into my back with a soft thud. "Hey, drop the thank yous from now on," I told her, my tone gentle but firm. Actions always speak way louder than words. "Until you fully pay off your debt to me, you absolutely cannot put yourself in danger. Got it?" Though she looked completely dazed, she nodded her head obediently. "Come on," I smiled. "Let's head home." After paying the bill and dropping off our address for the home delivery, I grabbed her bags of clothes and walked her back. As we strolled past the old corner bakery, the rich, mouth-watering aroma of sweet osmanthus wine hit us. I stopped and bought a piping hot slice of rice cake, blowing on it gently before holding it right up to her lips. She took a tiny bite, leaving a little smear of sticky osmanthus syrup right on the corner of her mouth. I naturally reached out, wiping it away with my thumb. Good, right? She beamed. It's so sweet and fragrant. Just wait, I promised. Next time I'll take you down to the main food street. There's insanely delicious grub over there. Hearing that promise, she stared longingly at my back. What I didn't realize was that, deep down in her heart, she was still holding on to that one childhood promise we had made in the park all those years ago. By the time we finished grabbing all the toiletries and finally made it back home, the bedding delivery had already arrived. I found myself kneeling on the guest room floor, struggling to stuff the duvet into its cover, while Chloe stood shyly to the side, tightly hugging her brand new pillow. "Let me help," she offered. I laughed, waving her off. "I got this. Knowing you, you'd probably accidentally sew yourself right into the blanket." I violently shook out the crisp new bedsheet, spinning around to playfully drape it right over her head like a ghost. "Listen up," I said softly. "This bed, and this entire room, belongs to you. You can stay here until you get absolutely sick of the place." Those incredibly simple words struck the deepest, most vulnerable part of her heart. Without warning, she quickly spun around, turning her back to me. I instantly sensed a heavy, bittersweet tension filling the room. Seeing her small shoulders trembling violently, I realized she was holding back tears. This was probably the very first time in her life she truly felt the warmth of having a real home. Trying to break the heavy tension, I intentionally cracked a joke. Whoa, don't get all weepy on me just yet. I'm still charging you full rent, you know. You can crash here, but you'd better start brainstorming how to pay off that massive debt." Hearing my teasing tone, Chloe quickly wiped her eyes and turned back around. Her pretty eyes were red and puffy, yet the most incredibly bright, radiant smile was blooming across her face. Right after I finally got Chloe settled into her new room, I collapsed onto the living room sofa, desperately trying to catch my breath. Suddenly, ding-dong! A sharp, deafening ring of the doorbell shattered the quiet. Startled, Chloe flinched, instinctively shrinking back a step. Having brutally lived through that horrific tragedy in my past life, my nerves were already stretched to the absolute breaking point. I refused to let my guard down for even a fraction of a second. Terrified that the shadowy killer from my past might be standing right on the other side of that door, I shot up from the couch, instantly pulling Chloe securely behind me. "Wait right here," I whispered tensely. "I'll go check it out." Seeing my fierce, protective instincts flare up, Chloe looked completely caught off guard, but a ripple of genuine sweetness instantly melted into her eyes. Treating the door like a mortal enemy, I slowly leaned into the peephole, only to realize the guy standing outside was Jace, my #1 murder suspect. What the hell? On this exact day in my past life, Jace never once visited my place. The timeline, it was already shifting. This wildly unexpected visit sent my internal alarms screaming. I forced my racing heartbeat to slow down, unlocked the deadbolt, and swung the door open. "Jace? What are you doing here?" I asked cautiously. He grinned. "What? I can't check on my bro for no reason? Man, that storm was insane last night, and you got totally soaked. I was seriously worried you were going to catch a nasty cold," he continued, holding up a container. "So I literally begged my mom to teach me how to brew this hot ginger soup to drive out the chill. Brought some straight over to you." Staring down at the steaming thermos in his hands, everything clicked into place. It turned out, my reckless decision to brave the pouring rain and warn him last night had actually touched him deeply, completely triggering this wild butterfly effect. I just stood there, staring blankly at the guy standing on my front porch. Looking into eyes packed with nothing but pure respect and fierce loyalty for his brother, I honestly didn't know how the hell to react. Actually, yeah, my head does feel a bit heavy, I mumbled. "Then hurry up and down 2 bowls of this while it's hot," Jace cheered. But just as he was stepping inside, his eyes locked onto Chloe, who was still hiding nervously behind my shoulder. He froze dead in his tracks. His wide eyes instantly started darting back and forth between the two of us. "Wait, Chloe? You two know each other?" A massive smirk spread across his face. "Ooh, I got it. Hello, sister-in-law." Damn. Looks like I picked the absolute worst time to crash your place today. He shoved the thermos into my chest. Drink this brown sugar, ginger, and jujube soup while it's piping hot, man. Oh, and it's super nourishing for the sister-in-law to drink, too. Anyway, I gotta bounce and head to the hospital to take care of my mom, so I won't stick around and play the awkward third wheel. Before I could even open my mouth, Jay spun on his heels and sprinted down the hallway like his shoes were on fire. Watching his bright, straightforward silhouette fade down the hall, a chaotic mess of emotions welled up in my chest. Staring at the soup, it was genuinely terrifying to try and believe that a guy this fiercely devoted to loyalty and friendship could actually be that cold-blooded killer. I prayed, hoping against hope that I'd catch the real culprit soon, just so I could finally clear his name in my head. Chloe stared blankly down the street where Jay had vanished. Everyone claims he's this terrifying bully at school, she murmured, but why doesn't he act like one at all? Man, appearances can be so deceiving. He's got his own demons too, I replied. Nothing is ever as simple as it looks on the surface. I popped the lid off the thermos, and a rich, sweet wave of ginger and jujube filled the air. I poured out 2 steaming bowls and handed her. 1. Drink up while it's hot. You got completely soaked last night, too. You've been looking pretty pale lately. Get some warmth back in your system. As the spicy sweet broth went down her throat, a flush of cozy warmth spread all the way to her fingertips. I'm so used to hearing awful rumors about him, she said softly. I never expected him to actually be a decent guy. I guess life just beats us down sometimes. He wasn't meant to end up like this. Hearing the words, "times life beats us down," a dark shadow crossed Chloe's face. Those simple words hit way too close to home, striking an agonizing chord with her own painful, messed-up past. I only knew the bare bones of Chloe's tragic family life. Is greater than, music, is greater than. Back in my past life, when I was desperately investigating her murder, I had tracked down her parents, but I hit a massive dead end. Her folks were divorced, and both had moved on to picture-perfect new families. She was stuck living with her mom. I knew for a fact that on that rainy, cursed night in my past life, Chloe had been driven into the freezing downpour to seek shelter because of that toxic, suffocating hellhole she called home. In my previous life, the neighbors whispered that Chloe ran out into the storm after a vicious fight with her stepfather, and that she'd apparently even stabbed him to get away. But when I dragged them into questioning, total denial. They spun a pathetic lie, claiming the stepfather slipped on a wet floor and accidentally fell onto a knife her mother was using to peel apples. Yeah, right. They also had the nerve to claim that her stepfather, because he found pictures of boys saved on her phone, had just scolded her a little, which somehow sparked the massive blowout. Right after Chloe ran away, they conveniently went to the ER. Security cameras backed up their hospital arrival time, pulling them completely off the suspect list. But when they were told their daughter was dead, that monster of a stepdad didn't even blink. Her mother, on the other hand, collapsed on the spot and completely lost her mind. But the detail that ripped my soul apart? The investigation proved Chloe ran straight to her biological dad's house after fleeing her mom's place, only to walk right back out minutes later. The street cameras showed her walking back out, head hanging down in total defeat. She looked so much more crushed than when she arrived. In the middle of a torrential storm, her own flesh and blood slammed their doors in her face, one after another, right before she finally dragged herself to my porch. I couldn't even stomach the thought, as she weakly knocked on my door, just how much agonizing, suffocating despair was crushing her chest. Every time the memory hits me, the guilt drowns me like a tidal wave. But thank God, fate handed me a second chance. And this time, I will absolutely never let go of her hand again. I snapped out of it and walked over to the sofa, carrying a warm mug of milk. Chloe was curled up like a kitten in the corner, totally lost in a book. The soft lamplight cast a warm glow over her fragile silhouette. I caught her absent-mindedly rubbing the inside of her left wrist, right over a pale, pink, crescent-shaped scar. Here, taste it. I mixed in a little honey. I pressed the warm glass into her hands. She opened her mouth to say thank you, but then remembered my strict rule, biting her lip to swallow the words back down. As the sweet scent of milk drifted between us, I noticed she was actually reading a weird old book I'd casually left on the shelf. What's this? Planning on becoming a fortune teller? Yeah, she giggled playfully. Once I master it, I'll totally read your fortune. But right as we laughed, The piercing, violent screech of car tires shattered the night outside. Chloe flinched hard, her spine going totally rigid, nearly spilling the hot milk. I quickly grabbed her shaking hand, glancing out the window to make sure we were safe. I settled back down right next to her, giving her fingers a gentle, reassuring squeeze. Hey, don't worry. You're still deeply in debt to me. Until you pay it back in full, absolutely no one is taking you away. I don't care who comes knocking. Hearing my promise, Chloe's racing heart skipped a beat for an entirely different reason. Well, once I learn this stuff, I'll see if our signs are even compatible. You better. I'm worried your horrible luck might rub off on me, your generous creditor. Chloe's little face turned bright red in a heartbeat. Little did he know, she had actually already done the math in secret, and they were an absolute, perfect match. So, what colleges are you eyeing? I asked. I've got a couple of solid options in mind, but I haven't completely decided yet. So, what's your game plan? I asked. For me, it's simple. Wherever you apply, I'm applying too. You owe me a massive debt, remember? If I don't stick to you like glue and you decide to make a run for it, I'd lose absolutely everything. Chloe stirred her drink in slow, gentle circles, getting lost in my smiling eyes. A rush of bittersweet emotion rippled right through her heart. I'm aiming for King's University, or maybe the psychology program at Kyoto Medical, she replied. Those two schools were absolutely no joke. What made you want to major in psychology? I asked. Suddenly, the tragic memory of her mother losing her mind flashed right through my head. Could her mom have had an underlying mental illness all along? Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but ultimately decided to keep it to herself. It's a really solid major, I added. Plus, it can definitely help toughen up your own mental resilience along the way. I'll work as hard as I possibly can. Then, I can tutor you in your studies. She blinked, looking at me in total surprise. Honestly, my current grades were painfully average, while she was sitting right at the top of our class. What's with that look? Are you looking down on me right now? Wow, okay. Oh, come on, you're totally lying. Whenever you lie, you can't even look people in the eye and you always stutter. Little did I know. Blurting that out completely exposed the fact that I had been secretly watching her this whole time. The warm, fuzzy feeling in her chest instantly became sweeter than the milk she was drinking. To prove my skills, I slapped a massive pile of college prep mock exams on the table and breezed through several pages in a flash, nailing every single question flawlessly. You see, in my past life, I studied like an absolute madman to get into the police academy and hunt down the real killer. These test questions were permanently burned into my soul. Seeing my hidden academic genius on full display, a sparkling gleam of admiration lit up Chloe's eyes. Wait, doesn't that mean I'll owe you even more in tutoring fees? She asked. What if I can't afford to pay you back? Then you better hurry up and sign a lifetime servitude contract for me. I slid a piece of paper and a pen across the table. I was just messing around, but to my absolute shock, she actually grabbed the pen and leaned down to write in total seriousness. I leaned in, super curious to see what kind of crazy terms she would come up with, but it turned out Chloe only wrote the title, Servitude Contract, and listed herself as the contracting party. She left a massive, gaping blank space right in the middle. She flashed a brilliant smile and handed the paper back. I'll leave the conditions in the middle for my handsome creditor to fill out himself. Whoa, wait a second. Doesn't that mean I can literally do whatever I want with you? So, what kind of service are you looking for, Master Creditor? She teased, smiling mischievously. I suddenly leaned in incredibly close. My warm breath brushed softly against the back of her ear, sending a wildly ticklish shiver down her spine. Forget about services, I whispered. But I do have one strict command. Tonight, hearing my deep voice, Chloe swallowed hard, suddenly nervous. At 10 p.m. sharp, you must go to bed. And you are absolutely not allowed to get out of bed before 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'll be making us breakfast tomorrow. She shot me a look of pure surprise, and then a wave of overwhelming warmth melted her heart as she smiled radiantly. As you command, Master Creditor. Later that night, following my strict authoritative orders to the letter, Chloe obediently crawled into bed. I poured her a soothing, warm glass of milk to help her sleep. You don't have to lock the door tonight, I softly said as I stepped out. She stared at the doorknob for a moment, ultimately choosing to leave it unlocked. Walking back into my room, I let out a massive, heavy sigh of relief. In my previous life, just to numb the agonizing guilt, I threw myself into solving brutal cases like an absolute maniac. I even rejected the cushy, safe desk jobs my mentor lined up for me. I was utterly terrified that if I ever slowed down, the soul-crushing memories of her would catch up to me. But now, thrust 10 years into the past, everything has changed. She has been saved, and I am finally, truly set free. After finally finding some inner peace, I fell into a heavy, deep sleep. In my dream, I was pulled back to a quiet little corner of a park from my childhood. A tiny little girl, looking as fragile as a porcelain doll, was sobbing her eyes out. "Why are you still crying when you're already so big?" "I'm not crying," she sniffled. "Did someone bully you? Tell me who, and I'll make them apologize to you." The little girl frantically grabbed his sleeve, pulling him back as she cried that it had absolutely nothing to do with anyone else. Little Ethan pulled out a perfectly clean handkerchief his mom had packed and gently wiped away her endless tears. "What are you staring at me for like a total dummy?" He peered down cutely into a muddy puddle, making the little girl burst into a bright smile through her tears. "Haha, there's that smile. My name is Ethan. I play around here all the time. If you ever feel sad again, you can always come find me." Hearing his mother call his name, the tiny boy quickly turned and ran off into the distance. "Ring! Ring! Ring!" My loud alarm clock blared through the room, and my eyes snapped wide open. I sat up, muttering to myself, why the hell did I suddenly dream about my childhood out of nowhere? Little did I know, across the hall, Chloe was trapped in the exact same vivid dream of that very park. "One of my parents is going to leave me," she had sobbed. "Hey, stop crying. I thought it was something super serious. My mom and dad have both left me, and you don't see me crying about it." Little Chloe had looked up at him, staring in complete and utter surprise. She never expected this tiny kid to be so incredibly strong. She wrapped her arms tightly around him, ending up being the one comforting him instead. "What are you going to do if your parents leave you?" she whispered. "I'll just live with my grandma and grandpa. I heard the grown-ups say they'll come right back as soon as they're done with their work. But people say that after mom and dad leave, they'll start new families, and then they won't want me anymore. I'm so scared." The little boy gently wiped away her tears one more time and grabbed her hand. "Then just come live at my house. It's super big. My mom and dad said they wanted a daughter anyway, so we can all be a real family." Those sweet, innocent words from a little kid made young Chloe's tears burst out like a broken dam all over again. It turned out there really was still a place for her in this big, lonely world, but after that day, he never showed up again. She left behind a little note, totally filled with gratitude, right down at their usual secret meeting spot. As the dream finally faded to black, Chloe watched his back walking away, her eyes already welling up with heavy tears. Knock, knock. I tapped lightly on the guest room door and softly woke Chloe up. Down at the dining table, I'd specially cooked up a warm bowl of red date, red bean, barley, and lily bulb porridge, just to help build her strength back up. Watching her carefully sip the hot porridge like a skittish little kitten, I couldn't help but just stare blankly at her. Why are you looking at me like that?" I just suddenly realized. "You look exactly like someone. A little girl I met when I was super young. We played together for barely 2 weeks before she moved away. You seriously look just like her. Did she not say goodbye to you?" Hearing Chloe ask that, I instantly fell deep into my memories. Not in person, no. I only figured out she was gone when I found this torn little note she left behind. It was totally ruined by the rain. Only half of it was left. I stared at Chloe, finding her resemblance to that sweet little girl getting crazier by the second. I asked if she'd ever run into a little boy at a park when she was a kid, but she just gave me this mischievous little smile and told me to guess. Right then, Chloe's mood visibly skyrocketed. She finally understood why I hadn't reacted at all when I first heard her name. It was because the part of the note with her name on it had been completely torn up and destroyed. Knowing that I'd actually remembered her this entire time, she acted super playful for once and refused to give me a straight answer. "Well, I guess you're not her then, because you're way more beautiful than she ever was." Seeing her cute little face instantly flush bright red with embarrassment, I smiled like a total winner. After polishing off breakfast, I got ready to take her out to buy a cell phone. After all, I couldn't exactly keep her tied to my side 24 hours a day, right? At the same time, I was racking my brain figuring out how to ask my mom who lived far away, for a loan. After dropping cash on fancy clothes and high-end bedding last night, my credit card was officially maxed out. I had just fired off a text asking to borrow $5,000, but I never expected my mom to instantly wire over $50,000. I stared at my mom's text. If that's not enough, just let me know. Make sure you date this girl seriously. I let out a painfully awkward laugh. Yep, it looked like Auntie Sharon had already snitched to my mom about me bringing a girl in to buy underwear. But hey, with this heavy-duty financial backup, my confidence instantly shot through the roof. Since our schedule is wide open, is there anywhere you want to check out? I really want to go for a walk in the Old Town Park. The Old Town Park? Wait a second. Wasn't that exactly where that little girl and I met all those years ago? Piecing together what she just said, her messy history with divorced parents starting new families, and remembering her cute little habit of looking away when she lied, plus those slight pauses when she talked, every single crazy detail lined up perfectly in my head. A wild, violent surge of pure emotion crashed right through my chest. In my past life, the second she died, my entire world had been swallowed by absolute darkness. It left me with zero time to even think about my childhood. But now, really thinking about it, she absolutely was that same little girl from back then. You know, the park over there is actually perfect for flying kites. Let's grab a kite on the way. After we fly it, we can hit up the food street. Sure, I've actually never flown a kite before. Seeing her light up with pure, childlike joy just over flying a kite, man, my heart completely melted. What was just a boring, normal day for most people was a super rare, precious experience for her. I swore a silent, unbreakable oath right then and there. No matter how much of college life she'd missed out on, I was going to help her make up for every single second of it. Let's snag you a cell phone first before we really head out. If you don't have a phone and something happens, how is a big bad creditor like me supposed to track you down? Hearing my hilariously clumsy excuse, she just smiled and gave a sweet nod. As I pushed open the heavy glass doors of the cell phone store, the overly eager clerk ripped off a dust cover and immediately pushed a matching pink phone, saying it was absolutely perfect for young couples. Hearing that phrase, Chloe shyly grabbed the edge of her light green skirt. I confidently pointed right at the rosy pink phone, priced at 4,880 yuan. But seeing her absolutely frozen, just staring blankly at that massive price tag, I slammed my hand against the glass, blocking her view. Hey, keep your eyes on me, not the price tag, I told her, my voice dropping. As your so-called creditor, I call the shots around here. The sales clerk handed over a shiny new display model, eagerly showing us how to snap the perfect selfie. Chloe nervously tapped the screen as my profile entered the frame, but she only managed to capture a blurry shot of my collar. I chuckled softly. Selfies only work if we're actually close, you know. I leaned in, wrapping my fingers gently around hers. The sudden heat of my palm seeped right through her skin, making her breath hitch. With my cheek brushing against her temple, I pressed the shutter myself. The screen flashed, freezing the moment. The photo was perfect. In the frame, she was looking up with these wide, innocent eyes, my face buried in her hair, while the glass behind us captured our intertwined shadows. To anyone walking by, we didn't look like a guy looking out for his debtor. We looked exactly like a young couple stealing a secret, intimate moment. After we bought the phone, the clerk offered a free custom engraving. Just put down ETHMM, I said smoothly. Chloe stared at the letters, her pretty face scrunching up in total confusion. The first 3 letters are for Ethan, but what on earth do the last 2 letters mean? She murmured, tilting her head. She was still obsessing over the riddle as we walked out, so distracted that she almost face-planted right over the doorway. I shot my arm out, catching her firmly against my chest. A rush of sweet jasmine from her hair instantly filled my senses. Watch your step, you silly girl, I teased. She pouted, looking up at me. Come on, just tell me. If you don't, it's going to drive me crazy all day. She actually tugged at my sleeve, completely dropping her guard to act cute. I sighed, unable to hide my smile. All right, you win. Am I not your creditor? M stands for my master, I smirked. Though, I suppose you could interpret it another way if you really wanted to. Realization washed over Chloe's face. Then, the alternate meaning finally clicked in her brain, and I could practically hear her heart rate spike. Her delicate cheeks flared a deep, burning crimson once more. Watching her squirm and blush like that, I couldn't help but laugh silently to myself. Those two letters M, she must have realized it could also mean my man. But I let her sit with the embarrassment, deciding not to expose her racing thoughts. Those raw, insecure, yet desperately hopeful feelings radiating from her, they made her look incredibly, agonizingly beautiful in that moment. The city bus rumbled and swayed as we headed toward the old town, the very place where our childhoods used to overlap. Pulling out one of my earbuds, I gently tucked it into her ear. "Have you ever heard this one?" I asked softly. "It's Don't Cry by Zhang Jihua. It's my absolute favorite." "I actually really love it," she whispered back. And just like that, a devastating flood of past life memories crashed over me. In my past life, I used to sit in the dark, playing this exact song on repeat countless times, completely broken while mourning her tragic death. The lyric, "Tonight I bloom like a midnight flower, withering at the very moment of ultimate beauty," always felt like a cruel, twisted prophecy of her terrible fate. The soulful, melancholic melody drifted between us. As she listened, fat, silent tears began to roll down Chloe's pale cheeks. Little did she realize the heavy burden behind the music. I knew the truth. In her past life, she had stood on a rooftop countless times, ready to end it all. The only thing that kept her going until now was the fading memory of a boy from her childhood. But things were different this time. Her tears right now, they were a final, cleansing farewell to that dark, hopeless version of herself. Just as I started drowning in my own bitter regrets, a trembling, soft hand gently brushed against my jaw. I looked down. Chloe's eyes held that same gut-wrenching empathy she had when we were kids. Without a word, she threw her arms around me, pulling me into a desperate, tight hug. The delicate warmth radiating from her body perfectly mirrored the tiny girl who used to comfort me in the neighborhood park all those years ago. I didn't dare pull away. I just let time freeze. The bright morning sun poured through the dirty bus windows, finally melting away the heavy, suffocating gloom that had haunted us for so long. Stepping off the bus, the familiar breeze of the old town hit us, carrying that crisp, nostalgic scent of camphor leaves. From the bustling little breakfast stalls to the cheerful ringing of bicycle bells, absolutely nothing had changed. We wandered down an alley lined with colorful dancing kites. Chloe trailed closely behind me, her eyes wide with the wonder of a curious little kid. We stopped in front of a bustling stall. Immediately, her eyes locked onto a beautiful peach-pink butterfly kite. "Hey there, you cute young couple," the vendor called out. "How about getting one for each of you? This blue one makes a perfect matching pair." I smirked, thinking to myself, if we fly two kites, how the hell am I supposed to find an excuse to hold her hand? I politely declined, joking back with the owner, leaving the old man momentarily speechless at my teasing. Chloe covered her mouth, a soft, genuine chuckle escaping her lips. The heavy awkwardness between us was finally melting away as the gentle spring breeze brushed against our faces. I dashed ahead with the kite, showing her exactly how to launch it. "Speed up! Keep running!" I shouted back. Under my lead, the pink butterfly finally caught a strong gust and soared into the sky. Chloe tilted her head back, watching it fly. For the first time ever, a vibrant, unmistakable spark of pure joy danced in her eyes. "You want to try?" I asked with a grin, handing the heavy wooden spool over to her. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind yanked the line, causing her to stumble backward. I didn't miss a beat. I stepped in, holding her firmly from behind, wrapping my warm hands securely over hers. As our fingertips brushed and tangled together, I closed my eyes, breathing in that intoxicating, fresh scent of jasmine from her hair. She leaned back slightly. "You know, Ethan, I remember when we were little, you always used to say the clouds looked exactly like cotton candy. You always said you wanted to taste them." I smiled, my voice dropping to a soft whisper. "Well, I think I finally found something even sweeter. It's you. Because right now, your smile is exactly like cotton candy. Soft and sweet." Just as the two of us were completely lost in this perfect little moment, I suddenly spotted a familiar figure crouching nearby. "Jace? What the heck are you doing here?" Jace froze like a deer in headlights. "Oh, Ethan. Hey, nothing much, man." He laughed it off, claiming he was just waiting for a friend. But following his gaze, I caught him staring dead at a girl with a ponytail, working hard at her dad's barbecue stall. Looking at her, the tragic past surrounding Jace in my previous life suddenly hit me like a truck. In that timeline, Jace and this girl fell madly in love. Desperate to prove himself to her judgmental father, who only saw him as a worthless school bully, Jace went to absolute hell and back. He chopped off his hair, endured the agonizing pain of laser tattoo removal, ditched his toxic friends, and even quit smoking cold turkey. Even his whole wardrobe changed to crisp, clean-cut clothes. But it didn't matter. No matter how hard he tried to change. To her old man, he was never anything more than a low-life thug trying to ruin his daughter. Heartbroken for the guy she loved, the girl snapped. She stormed out of her house in a fit of rage and moved straight into Jace's place. Jace's mom was happy for them, sure, but she constantly begged the girl to go back and make peace with her dad. But who could have guessed that instead of showing a shred of understanding, the father would drag the cops right to their front door? Right in front of all the nosy neighbors, he screamed at Jace for ruining his daughter's reputation and threatened to throw him in prison for assault. Jace's mom, who was already suffering from severe kidney failure, couldn't handle the shock. The sheer terror and humiliation triggered a massive attack, and she died right there on the spot. The girl's father stood there, completely dumbfounded. He only wanted to scare the kid, he never intended to kill anyone. But just like that, a beautiful romance twisted into a blood-soaked vendetta. His mother was his entire world. The crushing grief and explosive rage nearly made Jace tear the man apart with his bare hands right then and there. Even though the father completely backed down, drowning in regret. How the hell could Jace sleep next to the daughter of the man who murdered his mother? In the end, their tragic love story shattered into pieces. Jace dropped out shortly after and vanished from the city. Years later, when I randomly stumbled across him while investigating a case, he was completely unrecognizable. Dressed in filthy rags, sleeping under a freezing bridge, he had gone completely insane. He just sat there muttering one single line over and over again, that he had to avenge his mother's death. The unimaginable agony had totally incinerated his mind. He even forgot how to actually get revenge, doomed to rot away the rest of his life in absolute madness. Remembering that hollow, broken look in his eyes, my heart bled for him just as much as it did for Chloe's tragic fate. So, this time, even when all the bloody evidence pointed the blame at him in my past life, I refused to believe he was some cold-blooded monster. Since fate handed me a second chance at life, I absolutely refuse to let history repeat itself. I'm going to hand over that $100,000 reward for the fugitive lead straight to Jace. With the official backing of the police department, that stubborn old man's prejudice against him will instantly crumble. Ethan, what's going on in that head of yours? I'll fill you in at school tomorrow, I grinned. Jace just scratched his head, looking completely lost. As we were chatting, a teenager walking his little brother walked by and completely froze the second he saw me. Leo, hey, what a coincidence. Out shopping with the little guy? Leo gave a stiff, robotic nod, looking entirely unsure of how to react to my face. Hi, big brother Ethan. His little brother Toby, on the other hand, was absolutely adorable. Since I had saved his older brother's neck, the kid really looked up to me. Hey there, Toby. Good to see you, buddy. I smiled, reaching out to gently ruffle the kid's hair. But Chloe's sharp instincts kicked in. She instantly noticed that the way Leo was staring at me was deeply, deeply disturbing. The exact second I touched Toby, a sick, uncontrollable fanaticism violently flared up in Leo's dark eyes. He was burning with psychotic jealousy that his brother got to be so close to me, desperately craving to take his place. The sheer intensity of his obsession made his entire body physically tremble. Chloe felt a cold shiver run down her spine at that insanely obsessive glare. She couldn't even tell if it was pure, terrifying malice or just some twisted, suffocating form of worship. Sensing her watching him, Leo suddenly snapped his neck toward her, shooting her a piercing, venomous glare. Startled, Chloe instinctively stepped back, shrinking behind me and gripping my sleeve for dear life. I glanced up at Leo, and in a split second, he masked his crazy intensity, completely reverting back to his usual, lifeless, gloomy self. Honestly, I had absolutely no idea what went on inside that twisted head of his. Well, you guys enjoy your shopping. I'm pretty stuffed. so I'm gonna head out first. Leo awkwardly nodded, hunching his shoulders forward. Chloe, are you sure you're full? We've got school tomorrow, so make sure you go to bed early tonight, because I am definitely not making you a late-night snack. Hearing me say that to her, Leo's pupils blew wide open in shock. He opened his mouth, desperately wanting to say something, but ultimately swallowed his words. I am totally stuffed. Let us get out of here, I said. But I could feel the panic radiating off Chloe. She was completely spooked. She grabbed my arm, practically dragging me away from the busy food stalls. Meanwhile, down the block, it was not until his little brother yanked on his sleeve, shouting, Music! Big brother! Hey, big bro! That Leo finally tore his eyes away from the intersection where we disappeared, flashing a rare, soft smile at the kid. Back at my place, Chloe had eaten way too much. She slumped onto the sofa, gently rubbing her painfully full stomach. I sat right down next to her, gently taking her two tiny hands, resting them over her stomach, and showing her step by step how to rub in slow, clockwise circles. Seeing how intensely serious and patient I was being, Chloe's face turned bright red. This warm, cozy vibe made her feel so much safer and more at home than she ever did with her actual birth parents. I slipped into the kitchen and stirred up a tall glass of honey mint lemonade for her. But sitting alone on that sofa, a sudden, terrifying wave of anxiety crashed over her, a dark fear of losing all of this. Years of toxic abuse from her real family made her terrified that this beautiful, dreamlike moment was just a fragile, cruel bubble ready to pop. She was absolutely paralyzed by the thought that when she woke up tomorrow, she would be dragged back to that freezing, heartless house. I noticed her spacing out. I walked over, leaning in to press my forehead right against hers to check her temperature. Once I was sure she did not have a fever, I settled in beside her. Honey lemonade, I murmured softly, with a little mint to help your stomach settle. I scooped up a bit of the drink with a ceramic spoon and gently brought it to her lips. She was super embarrassed at first and reached out to hold the glass herself, but teasing that she should not lift a finger while she was this stuffed, I stubbornly fed it to her, one spoonful at a time. With every single sip she swallowed, a sweet, tangy warmth slid right down her throat, settling into her stomach. Watching how gentle I was being, without a single ounce of annoyance, tears suddenly welled up in Chloe's eyes. All the heavy depression and massive insecurity she had carried for years were melting away, piece by piece, replaced by a profound, rock-solid sense of safety. That night, she slept like a baby. In her dreams, she saw her late grandparents. She was crying happy tears, telling them all about this amazing, wonderful guy she had finally met. Right at the very end of that beautiful dream, she was holding my hand tight, waving goodbye to her grandparents up in the sky. All those deep psychological scars were finally beginning to heal. Her whole mindset shifted, finally giving her the long-awaited comfort and inner peace she desperately deserved. The next morning, Chloe was up bright and early cooking breakfast. Watching her hustle around the kitchen, I realized she looked like a completely brand new person. Her entire vibe was way brighter, and she radiated a warm, hopeful energy. After crushing breakfast, we threw on our school uniforms and walked out the door together. Hey, Chloe, I said, let us find some time in the next couple of days to swing by your old place and pack up your things. The second I mentioned that awful house, Chloe visibly flinched, her fingers suddenly curling into tight fists. She had absolutely no idea how she was ever going to face those two horribly broken families again. I grabbed her freezing left hand and squeezed it tight, letting the warmth of my palm soak into hers. Hey, do not worry. You do not need to stress about your family trying to stop us. I have a solid plan to shut them down. She looked up, desperate. Ethan, I really do not ever want to go back there again. She squeezed my hand back, her eyes shining with pure trust and a desperate longing for freedom. Trust me, I promised. I am never letting you go back. Besides, you still owe me big time right now, so you are absolutely not allowed to run away until that debt is paid off in full. Chloe cracked a tearful smile and nodded. Having finally found the brightest light of her entire life, she mustered the ultimate courage to leave that pitch-black darkness behind forever. Later that day, Chloe and I strolled into school together. The classroom was already buzzing, echoing with the chaotic sound of students doing their morning reading aloud. Just as we dropped our bags and slid into our seats, our classmate Sophie leaned over, her face practically glowing with juicy gossip. Hey, 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 hey! I heard you two hit up the street fair together last night, and it looked super romantic. Come on, is it true? Chloe's face instantly flushed crimson with pure shyness. Totally caught off guard, I reached out and playfully pinched Sophie's cheek, which was lit up by the morning sun. Who on earth told you that? Spill it, right now. She swatted at me. Ow, ow, okay. It was Toby. Leo's little brother told everyone. He said you were out on a date with a gorgeous girl. I let go of her face, totally defeated. Overhearing the juicy gossip, a couple of the guys in the back row started howling and teasing us too. I shot a dead serious glare across the room, and the idiots finally shut up, awkwardly going back to their morning reading. But then, out of nowhere, a middle-aged woman who still kept a sharp, intimidating charm suddenly appeared right at our classroom door. I took one hard look and my blood ran cold. It was actually Chloe's abusive biological mother. The absolute second she showed up, Chloe's entire body went completely rigid. Terrified, she instinctively whipped her head around, silently begging me for help. Our homeroom teacher walked over to the door, quietly exchanged a few words with the woman, and then turned to face the classroom. Chloe, your mother is here to see you. Catching a firm, reassuring look from my eyes, Chloe took a massive deep breath, forced herself to stand up, and slowly walked toward the doorway. Just as she stepped out into the hall, that manipulative woman slapped on a totally fake apologetic look, chatting up Mr. Harrison like nothing was wrong. Harrison tactfully stepped back into the classroom. Slumping in my seat, my gaze pierced straight through the window. Standing just outside the door, Chloe kept her eyes glued to the floor the entire time, her lips sealed tight, letting her mom just go off on her incessantly. After what felt like forever, the woman coldly spat out one last remark and spun on her heels, leaving her behind. Just this morning, my promise had finally brought a tiny spark of life back into her eyes, but the second Chloe dragged herself back to her desk, her vibe had completely hit rock bottom. She peeked up at me, practically shaking with anxiety. I didn't push or pry. I just gave her a rock-solid, meaningful smile. Catching my grin, her tense shoulders finally dropped a fraction, and the panic in her face started to melt away. Chloe, what did your mom want with you? Nothing, just some family drama. Kids shouldn't stick their noses into adult business. Once morning reading wraps up, I'm taking you to the snack shop so we can absolutely pig out. Now, be a good little student and read your book. I playfully whacked Sophie's gossiping head with my textbook, bailing Chloe out of that super awkward interrogation. But deep down, I had already mapped out the exact next step of my master plan. Since her family's toxic shadow clung to her like a curse, I had to hustle and secure some serious leverage so I could openly stay right by her side. The second the morning reading period was wrapping up, I marched straight up to the front podium and leaned in to whisper a wild request into Mr. Harrison's ear. At your age, you really ought to keep your head in your books, he warned. Mr. Harrison, how about we make a little bet? On this week's final exams, if I can lock down a spot in the top 10 of the class, you give me the green light to swap seats and sit right next to her. The moment he heard top 10, Mr. Harrison's calm eyes instantly flared with intrigue. He definitely wasn't one of those old-school boomers. To him, if you could take all that crazy teenage hormone energy and channel it into a hardcore grind to study and level up, that was actually a huge win. I gotta say, I admire your guts. All right. As long as you actually hit the top 10, I'll grant your request. I flashed a cocky grin and literally pinky swore the guy. Dropping back into my chair, I flipped open my English textbook and started grinding through the pages like an absolute madman. My deskmate, Caleb, stared at me like I'd just grown a second head, freaking out like I'd suddenly lost my mind on some crazy trip. I totally tuned him out. I knew this was one boss fight I absolutely could not afford to lose. The bell finally rang, and keeping my word, I dragged Chloe and Sophie down to the school snack shop. Sophie greedily piled up $10 worth of junk food, clearly trying to get petty revenge on my wallet for pinching her cheek earlier. Seeing Chloe still trapped in her own gloomy head, I swiped a lollipop off the rack and held it out to her. Here, get some sugar in your system. It'll boost your mood. And hey, remember what I promised you today. Once school lets out, I'm gonna get this whole mess sorted out for good. Chloe squeezed that little lollipop tightly, taking a couple of long, shaky breaths, until she finally flashed me a genuinely radiant smile that didn't feel fake or forced anymore. Just as we stepped out of the joint, I spotted Jace slouching on the edge of a flower bed, his eyes totally glued to a girl with a high ponytail working a nearby barbecue grill. Dude was staring so hard he didn't even notice us roll up. Yo, buddy, keep creeping like that and someone's gonna call the cops on you for stalking. Jace jolted back to reality, practically jumping out of his skin. Ethan, he stammered, panic in his eyes. Then he immediately bowed. What's up, sister-in-law? That comment instantly turned Chloe's face a bright, burning red. I shooed the girls back to class and plopped down right next to my boy. All right, man. Since I caught you red-handed, let me drop some wisdom on you. Chasing a girl only requires one single thing: pure dedication. But honestly, I'm not sweating Daisy rejecting you. Your real final boss is her ultra-traditional dad. He is absolutely going to take one look at your whole delinquent bad boy aesthetic and shut you down hard. Jace's face instantly crumbled into pure dread. Back in my past life, it was this exact, stubborn prejudice that triggered a horrible fight. The stress gave Jace's poor mother a massive, fatal heart attack, dropping her dead right on the spot. After that, my boy completely lost his damn mind. But in this life? Hell no. There's zero chance I'm letting that nightmare replay itself. Bro, I got a foolproof way to make her dad respect you. I actually have a rock-solid lead on a wanted fugitive with a $100,000 bounty on his head. Take this tip straight to the cops. Once they bag the guy, all that massive glory goes straight to your name. When the dust settles, armed with a legit police endorsement and a heroic school commendation, even if Daisy's dad tries to rip on your punk clothes, you can literally just tell him you were playing an undercover thug to help the cops bust criminals. Say you were blending in with the underworld. I guarantee he'll look at you like an absolute hero. Jace's jaw practically hit the pavement. Holy crap, Ethan. That is literally a genius move. We're splitting that $100,000 reward 50-50. You take $50,000, and that crushing financial pressure for your mom's hospital bills is gonna lighten up big time. Plus, you'll actually have the free time to properly woo your girl. My intel is bulletproof, man. You in? Bro, we are blood. You don't even need to ask. I'm all in. Right as Jace and I locked in our epic scheme, I noticed Daisy suddenly gathering her courage and marching directly toward us. Like a true wingman, I tactfully slid back into the shadows to grab some popcorn and watch the show. Standing a towering 6'1", my tough guy buddy Jace instantly morphed into a terrified, stuttering elementary school kid the second he made eye contact with her. Turns out, Daisy was actually the one who called the cops back then to clear his name. She walked in expecting some terrifying school bully, only to find a total sweetheart who stuttered whenever he got nervous. Watching Jace puppy-dogging right behind her, my fiercely protective heart finally took a breather. But when I turned around, Leo was just standing there quietly. I am so sorry about last Friday night, he mumbled. Did you make it home okay? I am fine, I told him. Here, this is yours. I dropped the jacket off at the dry cleaners. I will bring it to you the second it is ready. Taking the freshly washed handkerchief, I gave his shoulder a reassuring pat, told him I always had his back if he ever needed help, and strolled back to class. The second I walked into the classroom, I snatched up the chocolate Sophie thought she had hidden so cleverly in her desk. Ignoring Sophie's dramatic protests, I handed the very last piece to Chloe. With a soft smile, Chloe snapped it right down the middle and handed half back to Sophie. The room was buzzing with that classic, chaotic, high school energy. Settling into my seat, I checked my phone and saw my mom had just faxed over a document, a housekeeper employment contract. The terms of the contract were crystal clear: a monthly salary of $6,000, free room and board included, and a strict zero-tolerance policy for any work that would mess with her physical or mental health. Staring at the screen, I let out a massive sigh of relief. This was not just some boring employment gig. This was a bulletproof legal shield custom-made for Chloe. The second she signed this, proving she was over 18 with enough income to live on her own, her toxic parents' custody rights would turn to dust, and they could never interfere with or abuse her ever again. Since neither of those awful families could give her a single ounce of human warmth, I was going to use the law to personally drag her out of that suffocating nightmare. Once I made sure the contract was absolutely flawless, I fired off all the detailed intel I had gathered on that fugitive straight to Jace. Looking out at the bright afternoon sun, I knew it in my gut. The real, brand new life for Chloe and me was finally about to begin. But right as the final bell rang and we hit the school gates, Chloe just froze. She flinched, subconsciously taking a step back to hide behind me. I tracked her terrified gaze. Standing right there, like a dark cloud, was her deadbeat biological father, Richard. It did not take a genius to figure it out. Chloe had been gone for 2 days. Her mom could not find her at school this morning, so she went crying to her ex-husband. "I have got your back, no matter what," I whispered. "If you want to talk to him, talk to him. If you do not, I will handle this piece of work. Do not even stress about it." Her pale face looked as fragile as crushed glass. Taking 2 deep, shaky breaths, she forced her shoulders to drop and bravely kept walking right by my side. We completely ghosted Richard, marching straight toward the exit like he was utterly invisible. We had barely made it a few steps before heavy, angry footsteps pounded up from behind. "Chloe, wait a damn minute! Your mother says you have not been home for 2 or 3 days. What the hell is going on?" Richard barked. Though he was supposed to be talking to Chloe, his shady eyes were aggressively sizing me up from head to toe. Chloe bit her lip so hard she was shaking, completely paralyzed by fear. I did not hesitate for a second. Right in front of her so-called father, I reached out and locked my fingers tightly around her ice-cold hand. That bold move left Richard completely stunned. Chloe whipped her head toward me, eyes wide with sheer panic, terrified this monster would come after me. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. I smirked. "Oh, I think you know exactly what is going on. Last Friday night, during an absolute monsoon, she did not even have a real home to run into to get out of the freezing rain. So why do not you tell me what is going on? Who do you think you are, punk?" He spat. "I am her classmate. Let go of her hand right now and stay the hell away from our Chloe. In a storm that bad, you literally watched your own flesh and blood get soaked to the bone rather than let her in for one single night. How dare you even call that place her home?" When it came to a selfish, cold-blooded hypocrite like him, I had absolutely zero intention of backing down. "You little brat, who the hell do you think you are? Since when do you get to lecture me? Our family business is none of your damn concern. Let her go right now, or I swear to God I will drag your teachers and your parents into this. Oh, be my guest," I shot back. "In fact, how about I call my parents for you right now? If you really want them to rip you a new one, I would not mind making that happen. You are harassing a teenage girl on school grounds. If you do not back off right this second, I am dialing 911. Filing a false police report gets you locked up, buddy. The police department is not your personal security detail. I highly suggest you calm down, sir," I mocked. Realizing he was completely losing this verbal fight, Richard lunged forward, trying to violently yank Chloe away. My eyes went dead cold. In a flash, I flipped my hand up and caught his wrist in a vice grip. Thanks to the brutal grappling techniques I had mastered in the police force during my past life, I was packing way more raw power than any normal high school kid. Richard let out a pained, guttural groan. "Listen closely," I growled. "I'm only going to tell you 3 things. You better open your ears. Number 1, Chloe's custody belongs completely to her mother. You have absolutely no right to control her, let alone touch her. Take your filthy hand off. Number 2, when she needed your protection the most, you just stood there like a coward and watched her get thrown out into the pouring rain. What right do you have to stand here today acting like a caring father? It makes me sick. And number 3, she's a legal adult now, completely capable of standing on her own 2 feet. She doesn't need your fake charity. If we're done here, we have lunch plans. See ya." With that, I violently shoved his arm away in disgust. "Oh, and if you ever dare to bother her again, I'll hang a massive banner right in front of your company. Let's see how your bosses and coworkers react when they find out you locked your own flesh and blood out in the middle of a raging storm. I'm guessing that wouldn't look too good for your next big promotion, would it?" I hit the absolute bullseye. I knew exactly where to strike a selfish piece of trash like him. Richard froze dead in his tracks. His jaw hung open, left completely and utterly speechless by my threat. On the walk back to my place, I caught Chloe sneaking little glances at me. To her, I was this confusing mix of familiar and completely alien, radiating a heavy, mature aura that definitely did not belong to a normal high school kid. "Hey, I'm really sorry, Chloe. I completely lost my temper back there. I just snapped at your dad without even stopping to think about how you'd feel. A sudden wave of regret washed over me. No matter how garbage he was, the guy was still her biological dad. Putting her right in the middle of a war zone like that, it must have made her feel so incredibly trapped and conflicted. I'm really glad. I'm so glad, she whispered, her small fingers gently squeezing my palm. Her fingertips absently traced soft circles on the back of my hand. She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. The way you stood right in front of me, how you defended me without a single second of hesitation. Even though you're just a high school guy, you actually stood up and challenged my father right to his face. I'm just really so happy. She finally looked up, and my heart dropped. I realized her beautiful face was already completely drenched in tears. I pulled out my handkerchief, reaching over to gently wipe away the wetness from her red, puffy eyes. Hey, why are you crying if you're so happy? She didn't say a single word. Instead, she flashed me the most breathtaking, radiant smile I'd ever seen. Those heavy tears weren't from sadness. They were the physical release of her dark past, and the pure, unadulterated joy of starting a brand new life. You silly girl, I teased softly, crying one second and grinning the next. But hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with crying. Being able to smile right after a good cry, that's how you know you're really healing. Hearing my gentle, reassuring words, Chloe felt that icy, sharp spike that had been wedged deep in her heart for years finally melt entirely away. Once we got back home, I hit the kitchen and scooped out 2 massive, heaping bowls of steaming taro and pork rib rice. Whoa, this is way too much. I can't possibly finish all of this. There's a special kind of hunger called your boss thinks you're starving. Just eat it up. Even if you gain up to 200 pounds, I'll always let you stay here. And hey, if you actually get fat, worst case scenario, I'll turn into your personal drill sergeant and run the weight right off you. Don't go torturing yourself just to stay skinny. Girls are honestly way cuter when they're a little chubby. You know, kind of like Sophie. Her cheeks feel so perfectly squishy when you pinch them. She pouted. Wait, so if I eat until I'm chubby, does that mean you're going to pinch my face and bully me every single day too? Come on, I could never bring myself to do that to you. Besides, you're officially my employee now. If I bully you, that's a straight-up workplace harassment lawsuit. If you reported me to the labor board, I definitely couldn't afford the settlement fees. But we don't even have a contract. How am I supposed to sue you? I smirked. Whoever said we don't? I casually set down my bowl and chopsticks, strolled right over to the fax machine, and plucked a fresh document, sliding it across the table to her. Your lifelong servitude contract has been sitting ready for a while now. Just sign on the dotted line after we finish eating. Chloe's eyes went wide as she read the names printed on the paper. Wait, you actually told your mom? I nodded. Yep, it's only legally binding if an adult gets involved. Did she say anything else about me? I grinned. She sure did. She said if you don't take exceptional care of me, she's firing you on the spot. Especially this one specific clause right here. Managing all daily living arrangements. Like, for example, if my bed sheets are too cold at night, it's your official duty to warm them up for me. She gasped, blushing. Hey, that is clearly an illegal and unfair clause. That kind of special service definitely requires premium overtime pay. Seeing that she wasn't that anxious, trembling, shy girl anymore, that she was actually comfortable enough to joke around and bite back, I couldn't hold it in. I just threw my head back and laughed out loud. This little contract of freedom finally wrapped her completely under my wing, safe from harm. The air around our small dining table suddenly felt incredibly warm and alive. Chloe continued, flipping through the heavy stack of papers. At first, she thought I was just pulling a massive prank, but her eyes widened as she realized the clauses covered her safety and security down to the very last detail. It was shockingly professional. No freaking way, she breathed, utterly stunned. Are you seriously going to pay me this huge salary written on here? Once we get this down in black and white, it's completely legally binding. If I don't pay you and you sue me later, I'd be facing triple the damages. That just won't work for me. Let's just skip the contract, Ethan. Looking at her deeply anxious expression, I took a slow sip of my milk. I already had everything perfectly planned out. This contract wasn't just us playing house behind closed doors. Its real purpose is to deal with the inevitable trouble your parents might stir up down the line. Hearing the word parents, I keenly noticed her shoulders flinch. Her eyes filled with total confusion. My parents? What do they have to do with this? Even though you've just turned 18, without a stable income, you're still completely under their absolute control. But, according to Article 18 of the Civil Code, as long as you earn a stable income to support yourself, you're legally recognized as a fully independent adult. I swiped open my phone, pulled up the legal statute, and held it right in front of her. Simply put, as long as you have this job, you have every right to tell your parents to back off. If they ever try to force you into anything, you can use the law to protect yourself. Is that really true? An outsider could never even begin to imagine the invisible, bloodless, psychological abuse that had backed her into such a desperate corner. Staring at that legal clause, the heavy gloom in her eyes finally vanished, replaced by a radiant, unprecedented spark of life. See the benefits now? Be a good girl and sign it after we finish eating. But $6,000 a month is just way too much. My mom only makes $3,000. I can't even do a housekeeper's job properly. How about we cut it in half? I chuckled. Silly girl. You're eating my food and living under my roof. Won't I just end up collecting this money right back from you anyway? That number is strictly for outsiders to see. In the end, it all goes back to me. Oh, then I'm so relieved. Seeing her instantly relax, she began to happily wolf down the pork rib rice in her bowl. It was as if even the plain white rice tasted incredibly sweet. I couldn't help but tease her a bit more. I'm just messing with you. I won't short you a single penny. If you really think it's too much, all the household expenses can just come out of your salary from now on. Let me thoroughly experience what it feels like to be a kept man. All right, I, Chloe, promise to use my very own salary to take care of Ethan for the rest of his life. We'll record a video as proof. We joked around as we ate. After dinner, she eagerly signed the contract in high spirits, humming a cheerful little tune as she playfully pushed me out of the kitchen. She slipped on her rubber gloves, happily tackling the dishes all by herself. A cozy peace settled over the living room. Then, I suddenly remembered the soothing herbs I'd brought back from my grandparents' place last night. The old couple had told me, placing this under the pillow helps you sleep so much soundly. I was so insanely busy yesterday that I totally forgot about it. I quietly walked into the guest room. She had meticulously made the bed, and a faint, sweet fragrance lingered in the air. I walked straight up to the bedside and casually lifted her pillow, but my gaze froze instantly. A cold, sharp fruit knife lay quietly beneath the pillow. My pupils contracted in sheer horror. This knife, and the one the medical examiner from my past life deduced was the murder weapon that killed her, were an absolutely perfect match. This was definitely not a knife from my house. From the moment she was roaming the streets in that violent storm to the second she got here, she had been keeping this knife tightly hidden on her person. Countless horrific scenes from my past life violently exploded in my mind. The police had absolutely ruled out suicide because the angle of the stab wound was completely wrong. But if the murder weapon was something she brought along herself, then all those suspects I had previously dismissed just because they weren't carrying a weapon, the bullied kid, Leo, the street thugs, the passing homeless guy, the delivery driver, or even just some random stranger who brushed past her in the dark. Since the weapon was already on her, then literally anyone passing through that alley on the night of the murder could have snatched the knife and killed her. Every single one of my previous deductions was completely shattered in an instant. Ethan, about this knife? I just finished the dishes. I hadn't even heard her walk up to the door. She watched me standing there, completely frozen with her pillow in my hand. And then her eyes dropped to the exposed fruit knife on the bed. Extreme panic instantly flooded her eyes. She looked absolutely terrified that I would misunderstand. Hey, it's okay. You don't need to explain anything to me. For a girl out on her own, having this kind of safety awareness is a smart thing. I pulled her tightly into my arms, feeling her tense, helpless, trembling against my chest. But over her shoulder, my eyes darkened with absolute resolve. My brain was frantically tearing through the massive, complicated files of her murder from my past life. In this life, I swear to God, I swear I will absolutely never let that tragedy repeat itself.